Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have a Smith Wesson M&P pistol, except really big, and it folded in half? No, you haven't? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Probably not, huh? But tough shit, because that's what you're getting today on TFBTV, the brand new Smith Wesson FPC. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to yourselves. You're at least a little bit interested to see what this thing is, if it's completely or only partially useless. And maybe you want a little range review, huh? I know you guys so well, so fold up a little love letter for me in the comments while I unfold the mystery of the FPC in your face right now. The FPC, aka the Smith & Wesson fist pumps, push-ups, and chapsticks, is a 9mm pistol caliber carbine that Smith just released today. Right away, obviously, comparison to the Kel-Tec world-famous SUB-2000 carbine. The guns are pretty similar. They're both folding 9mm carbines that accept popular pistol magazines, and neither gun you will mistake for a Beretta Ultraleggero. That's my cute way of saying that both of these guns are built to be simple, lightweight, and inexpensive. Or I guess you could say cheaply built if you're an asshole. In spite of the overarching similarities, there are a number of differences between the two that we'll get into today, starting with this one. While the SUB-2000 folds end over end, the FPC folds side by side, meaning it's thicker when it's folded, but it's shorter in overall height. The FPC's operating mechanism is also similar. Both guns use a straight blowback system, with the recoil spring and the buffer being in the stock tube. There's heavy use of polymer and alloys in both. The grip frame, trigger, and magazines are pretty much all taken straight from the Smith & Wesson M&P line, which is a good thing because the M&P series of pistols has been around for almost 20 years now and has made quite a name for itself, constantly improving all the while. The brand new Smith & Wesson FPC takes Smith & Wesson M&P magazines, which is fine, although this does arguably give the SUB-2000 a leg up because the Kel-Tec will take cheaper and more plentiful Glock pattern magazines. But on the other hand, the M&P series has a pretty good duty trigger, and that carries over to the FPC. You're looking at a 1/2 by 28 inch threaded barrel, an M-LOK foregrip made of polymer, which would feel a little cheap or out of place on an actual rifle, but for a pistol caliber carbine, it does the trick and it keeps the weight down. The FPC is just 5 pounds unloaded, 2 pounds lighter than your average AR-15. Optic's top rail up top, plenty of space for mounting accessories. Unlike the Kel-Tec, the FPC does not come with iron sights at all, but I imagine most people want to mount their optics anyways, and that's one huge advantage of the FPC over the Kel-Tec. You can stow the gun with an optic in place because the SUB-2000 folds barrel over stock, conventional optics mounting not an option. And that actually raises a point. Why do we give a shit if this gun folds in half? Tell me why you care, I'll wait. I mean, you're right, it does look cool and that does count, but are there any pragmatic reasons? The FPC folds to just under 16.5 inches, which is really impressive, but in the grand scheme of things, you're only saving about 6 inches versus a gun like the Ruger LC carbine and 5.7 behind me. When I fold the stock on it, 6 inches can be a really big deal. In the US, we have to have a 16-inch long barrel on a rifle with a stock unless we want to get ruby ridged. And perhaps the only way you're going to be able to get a 16-inch barreled carbine into most standard backpacks or rucks is to make it fold in half. 511 Rush 24, one of my favorites, pretty standard ruck here, and easily the FPC goes easily in any direction. This is the new 5.7 carbine. It does not. When you look at it on paper, when you look at it here compared side by side, it doesn't look like a lot, but it really is. But when you actually try to put it into a pack and deploy it, it does make a pretty big difference. There's plenty of space in a Rush 24 size pack for your carbine, a big thing of chewing gum, a knife, duct tape, bottle of Ambien, and more rope than you would ever need. People see 9mm, they're like, what's the point? They stop reading without considering that. Feel free to cross-check me on this. A 9mm round shooting out of a 16-inch barrel has nearly identical ballistics to a .357 Magnum uncorking from a full-size duty revolver. And of course, with that increased velocity, you get better terminal performance, but better ballistics, better range, better accuracy. We'll talk about that in just a second because we brought the FPC out to the rifle range. The FPC uses this friction-based deployment mechanism. Intelligently enough, the polymer ambi charging handle here in the cocking tube fits into one of the M-lock slots here on the handguard. It's neat because you can do cool stuff like one-handed deployments, but if you don't whip it hard enough, it won't deploy, and if you whip it too hard, the front and the rear flange will bounce off of each other instead of locking together. Trust me, it takes a few tries the first time you handle one of these to get good at this, and it can be frustrating.
Motherfucker! Too hard. Fuck.
Safety.
F***ing safety.
When you're ready to fold it back up, then you just hit this little button here and fold it right back up. Now, one thing that slightly bothers me about friction-based retention systems is that they can wear out from repeated use depending on the surfaces that are meeting each other. But here we're talking plastic on plastic. I think this is a plastic charging handle and a plastic handguard, so it's probably not going to wear itself out unless you're constantly folding and unfolding this thing like a weird Rain Man Rambo or something. In contrast, the SUB-2000 has a latch that needs to be moved out of the way in order to release the upper from the lower. Controls are going to be very familiar to you M&P boys out there. The trigger is actually pretty damn good at, let's check it, 5.5 pounds. Pretty much the same as like a standard M&P 2.0, which is a good thing. The magazine release right here is reversible, and it's also similar to the M&P. Unfortunately, the bolt release is also similar to the M&P, meaning it sits very flush with the frame and it's tricky to deploy. Bolt release on this side. Typical M&P, not my favorite, right? This is one of my least favorite ones. It's super flush and really tight, so hard to hit with gloves. So I'm just going off the cocking tube. But then this one right here, I mean, look at that. That makes me nervous, makes my butt cheeks clench up a little bit. Yeah, there you go. So that's what I worry about with that. Could have been a bare finger or something else. I don't know what that would be if it's something else, what you're releasing your bolt release with, but you know, I'd love to hear some suggestions in the comments. Not my favorite, but whatever. I'm just using the charging handle to release the bolt every time anyways. Not a big deal at all, and I don't really care. Son of a bitch. Finally got it. We would call it a slide stop, not a slide release. I mean, it's nice that it does, and I should say bolt stop. It's nice that it functions to keep the bolt open, makes that magazine insertion a little bit easier. Just use your cocking handle here to put it back into action. Side note, the SUB-2000 has an okay trigger out of the box, but M-Carbo actually makes a user installable trigger upgrade that's pretty good and pretty cheap. Let's talk about performance on the range. It's a typical 9mm straight blowback experience, meaning that it probably has more recoil than an AR-15, but that isn't to say it's difficult to shoot. You could take your wife, your grandma, or your 4-year-old to the range with this thing, and they'd probably be fine. Don't actually do that with a 4-year-old, but very few straight blowback 9mm are better than just okay to shoot. The FPC is more of the same in this respect, and in addition, the sproinging of the recoil spring and the buffer are the loudest part about shooting this gun suppressed. My absolute favorite ammo for shooting suppressors, Federal Syntech 150 grain. It's like 900 feet per second out of the muzzle. Super, super quiet. Plus It's got the little lipstick of death thing going on. Sounds great. This week I've got the Silencer Co. Osprey. This is the new one. Now, I forgot to take out the Nielsen device, so I apologize about that. I know everybody's going to be freaking out in the video about that. Let's see how this thing sounds. Subsonic 150 grain Federal Syntec. Yeah, quiet as shit. Really the loudest thing by far. You've got the recoil spring here, and that is actually the buffer. It's going to be a heavy buffer if this is a straight blowback gun. So really heavy buffer, really robust recoil spring that you can kind of see through this crack here. That is loud as shit. That actually kind of was unpleasant on my ears, but something tells me from your perspective, not being able to hear that, I bet you this gun's super quiet with the Osprey and the 150 grain Syntec. That's awesome. That is really super quiet. I mean, you guys can hear this right here. It's without even shooting it, it's loud as shit. Sproinging is borderline a technical term that usually refers to the sound of an AR-15 spring and buffer whenever you shoot it, by the way. With red dot optics becoming cheaper and more reliable day after day, really the next choke point for accuracy when you're talking about most handguns or carbines these days, not necessarily the sights, but the trigger. The FPC, as I said, has a good one. Throw a decent optic on here, and what do you know? God, 10 for 10 at 100 yards with an MRO and the Smith Wesson, what are they calling this thing? FPC. That's pretty good. Again, you've got a good trigger on this thing that clearly was borrowed from the M&P Pistol line. So, you know, it's nice when you have a clean trigger with a red dot, 10 out of 10 at 100 yards on a standard B27 type silhouette target. So that's pretty impressive. Perfect accuracy on a man-sized target at 100 yards with a center hold and standing, literally 10 out of 10, not bad. In case you're wondering, the FPC cannot be unfolded if there's a round in the chamber. While it looks better for the gram to unfold and fire this thing in one smooth motion, I think this is probably a smart safety play for Smith & Wesson. We ran about a half case of 9mm through ours, no issues whatsoever. I accidentally forgot the 23 round magazines, so I can't vouch for their reliability, but we used 15 round magazines from an M&P compact and a 17 round magazine with a grip extension that came with this gun. As you guys can tell, it's nice having this little double magazine holder here in the stock. Pretty clever, right? Mags can only go in, bullets facing down. The deployment method is a little odd. You can see there's like a plate here that's holding the mag in and a little spring, right? So you can't pull the mag out until you hit that little plate, till you press it up. So it's a little tricky. I bet if you practiced enough, you could get good at it one-handed. Like, I guess, peel one down here and pull it out. That's what I'll try to do moving forward with this review. But I would have liked to have seen either a different deployment method or maybe a little bit longer plate, because get a good look at that. You can see there's not really a lot of space, especially if you're wearing gloves. Good time to mention that, interestingly, the grip on the FPC is the same size as the M&P compact, not the full size. I would have thought Smith would have gone with the full size grip, but the compact does make sense since you can use the 17 rounder with the grip extension if you want, or you can use flush fit 15 rounders if you have a compact already, an M&P compact that is. But you couldn't do that if you were using the full size grip because 15 rounders will not fit into a full size 17 round grip. If you're looking for a backpackable 9mm carbine, now you've got two great options, the SUB-2000 or the Smith & Wesson FPC. Both are great guns. I've reviewed both for TFBTV. I've got a SUB-2000. I've had it for years. If you're trying to figure out which one to buy, I imagine this comes down to mag and optics compatibility. If you already have a Smith Wesson M&P pistol, I would say get the FPC. If you already have a Glock or a bunch of Glock magazines, then maybe you look at the SUB-2000. If mounting optics and keeping them zeroed is important to you, you need to get the FPC. But if you want iron sights right out of the box and to have backup iron sights, get the Kel-Tec. The FPC seems like it has a little bit better fit and finish than the SUB-2000 and a better trigger, but then again, the SUB-2000 has been around for over a decade and has proven itself while the FPC is brand spanking new. I'm not positive about this, but you're looking at an MSRP of about $699 for the FPC, which makes it very competitive with the SUB-2000, but either are great options, as I've said. Speaking of great options, you made a good choice whenever you came over here to TFBTV. We don't accept money in exchange for positive reviews. This FPC was sent to me as a T&E gun by Smith Wesson, and that's it. If that sounds good to you, consider supporting us on Utreon, Subscribestar, or Patreon. Now, unfortunately, we can't give away guns on Patreon, but we give away 4 guns a month on Subscribestar and Utreon. Check the official rules. Tell me what you think about the FPC in the comments, or the FPC versus the SUB-2000. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Take care.